Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and today I want to give you guys my honest opinion about patch 7.2. A lot of people have been asking me to make videos about different features in the patch, but I didn't really want to do that many. Let's do one video, big video, and tell you guys generally how I feel. Well, everybody's playing the patch. Some people like it, some people don't, and the way I feel, it's good. Patch is good. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a 20-minute rant. I'm going to talk to you guys about what I like. I'm going to talk to you guys about what I don't like. And I'm going to also talk about everything else in between. I don't understand. Guys, I don't understand. This patch, I've never seen such like vitriolic anger. Like, people are so mad about this patch. And I don't entirely understand why. And before I say that, okay, they did some dumb shit in the patch. Okay, let's be real. The item scaling, item level scaling in the world zones is fucking stupid. The amount of times that they changed the nether shard drop rates and all that is fucking stupid. Having the Legion invasion spawn at 3 AM and be a requirement for flying, I think was also fucking stupid, but at least they changed that one. So this patch did have a lot of really stupid stuff in it, and apparently, looking at the hotfixes, it's not over yet. But one thing I do think this patch really did, and a great thing that it did, is actually what it didn't do. It did not take content out of the game. Now, what I mean by that is whenever 6.2 came out in Warlords of Draenor, there was really no reason to do any content in WoD pre-6.2. With the Broken Shore, I feel like obviously the Broken Shore is the most lucrative way of getting gear, but also it added other elements of content into the game with the Paragon boxes that you can get through the world quests, with having the invasions to where you go back into the same zones, and it reused some of the old content. It scaled up the world quests, so there's actually more content in the game now, whereas in 6.2, in a lot of ways, you were no longer playing Warlords of Draenor, which, I mean, there wasn't a lot to do in the first place, but you were even only playing patch 6.2. And I feel like that was a really, really bad thing for them to do then. And they also did that same thing in 5.4, which is a Timeless Isle patch. At that point, the gear that dropped in Timeless Isle was like 496, which is the equivalent of the TOES and Heart of Fear normal mode gear. And that would just drop, I mean, that was free. Like, you got that no matter what. And then if you use the Burdens of Eternity on that gear, it would be 535, which was the equivalent of a TOT, Throne of Thunder, heroic 25-man gear, or it wasn't a 25-man, but heroic gear without it being Thunderforged at that point. So in a lot of ways, all of the first tiers of the whole raid, of the whole expansion, were completely invalidated. There was no reason to do any of the Valor gear. There was no reason to do a number of things that were added at the beginning of the expansion, just because none of that was scaled up, none of that was re-incentivized, and there was no reason to do it. Now, I'm not saying that they should always incentivize everything by scaling it up infinitely, but to a certain extent, I feel like, especially this close together, I'm very glad that the Broken Shore didn't completely eclipse all of the other content in Legion. So for that reason, I feel like patch 7.2 has been an addition into the game rather than a minus. Like, patch 5.4 could have arguably been, and it took some content out of the game, and also 6.2 did even more so. So I'm really glad that we're playing still the expansion and not just a patch. I'm worried, however, whenever Tomb of Sargeras comes out, because the LFR gear in Tomb of Sargeras is, I think, 885, and at that point, 885 is going to be so baseline it's not going to matter at all. There's going to be really no reason to do Emerald Nightmare. There's going to be almost no reason to do Trial of Valor. And Nighthold will be waning in terms of its actual, its usefulness in terms of being in the game. So I'm very worried with the way that Tomb of Sargeras numbers are looking, and I'm concerned that Tomb of Sargeras, and with how easy it's going to be to do Tomb of Sargeras LFR and Tomb of Sargeras normal, and probably also Tomb of Sargeras on heroic, or at least the first half, I would assume, that all of the other content before that will be completely invalidated. Right now in Nighthold, there are still reasons to go back to the old tier, and really, I would say that Emerald Nightmare was its own tier because it was just so much easier than Nighthold. And I do understand that obviously whenever you move from one tier to another tier, the new tier's gear should be better, but I feel like having some overlap back and forth could actually be good for the game because it creates more content for people to do that they might not necessarily feel is required, but it can still advance their character. I think there are some things that you could get back in TOT, this is in Mists of Pandaria, that were still good in Siege of Orgrimmar, like the Rune of Reorigination for Feral Druids, etc. And this was even more prevalent in Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King to a lesser extent with Valinir, and also there were certain items that you could even get in Karazhan that would be best in slot for your character going all the way up into Sunwell. So if you were a person that still didn't have that gear, there was still a reason to go back and do Karazhan on the weekends with maybe some, some alts or, like social people in the guild. And I felt like that created a very good atmosphere, and I hope that Blizzard tries to incorporate that more with what they're doing with Tomb of Sargeras. So that is a big concern for me, but at its current point, I don't really feel like 7.2 has removed any content from the game. Now, the mob scaling situation I think is really stupid. I think the way that Blizzard handled it is even stupider, and the fact that mobs now do have more health because you have more gear doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and it seems like they're time gating things down to the individual boar. It sucks. The invasions that they added into the game in 7.2 are also really cool. I like them a lot. I really enjoyed the pre-expansion invasion events, and I think that whenever more people are getting flying, it's going to be even more fun to see people flying towards the invasions, but I do feel like they should incentivize them in a better way by making them drop Legion Order Hall resources, or sorry, not Legion Fall resources, the ones that you put into different towers and you turn in 100 of them for reputation and AP. I feel like maybe completing a, the invasion should give, number one, it should give reputation with the armies of Legion Fall, and number two, it should probably give some of those resources as well to get more people participating in the invasions, because I felt like one of the big things that was awesome and fun about the pre-expansion event invasions was seeing, this giant Legion tower, and you turn around and you look behind you and there's like a dozen, 2 dozen, 50 people maybe flying behind you, all on their own special awesome mounts. People on Ashes of War, Invincible, the Pureblood Firehawk, the Albino Drake, you got some noobs in there too. Everybody's flying on their own mount, and just seeing like kind of the might of Azeroth coming towards it was really, really cool. And I think that the scale of the Legion invasions in the pre-expansion event was one of the big things that people really liked about them. So hopefully if they better incentivize them, and also on top of that, they make them more predictable whenever they're going to happen, I feel like, and also combining that as well with having people getting flying so it's easier to go to different places and it's easier to do them, I feel like that would make the invasions a lot better for the game. Now, the dungeon, Cathedral of Eternal Night, is fucking ridiculous. It's really, really hard, and it's also really, really fun. I feel like all the bosses are very well designed, minus the first one. I just don't like it, honestly. But the other bosses, I think, are really well designed. I like them a lot. I think that they're great bosses. I feel like in Mythic Plus, the number tuning is way too high. As a comparison to where you can just kind of look at it, the health that Mesferoth, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Mesferoth or something like that, the last boss, the Dreadlord, has in Mythic Plus 8 is higher than the last boss in COS Plus 10 with Tyrannical Affix has. So I feel like with a plus 8 boss has more health and also does more damage on top of that than a plus 10 boss with Tyrannical. There's obviously a scaling problem, and if they want to make Cathedral of Eternal Night significantly more difficult than the other dungeons, it should also carry the same type of increase in rewards, which it currently doesn't do. So I feel like that's a bad thing. The prestige boxes for the world quests, I do like those too. I think that they're cool. I didn't really know how to think about them at the beginning, and I think that my opinion will change once people really kind of get a better idea on what the drop rates for these mounts are. I feel like with how much investment that you have to put into getting one of these boxes, if the mount was only a 1% chance, that would be absolutely ridiculous, and I feel like that would be a little bit too rare for how much effort and investment is required. If it's like 10% or maybe even 5%, it would be relatively reasonable. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is Nether Shards. Now, Nether Shards, I feel like, is a very good indication of how Blizzard treats the PTRs now. PTRs are basically a stability test, and the live servers are whenever they tune the game. It's ridiculous that they've changed the best way of farming Nether Shards pretty close to a half a dozen times now. At the beginning it was killing elites, then it was just farming different chests, then it was doing the Sentinex portals, and now I know the Sentinex portals got nerfed and I don't really know what it is. I feel like Blizzard trying to corral and put everybody on the same rails and tell them this is how we want you to play, this is how you're going to play, and if you do it any other way, it's completely inefficient, or it's just purely taken out of the game with how bad the Syntax portals are. I feel like that's a very bad way of handling an MMO, especially with some people wanting to do things in different ways. I like the idea of going around and killing rares for nether shards. I like the idea of collecting treasure chests. I like the idea of farming down mass amounts of Syntax mobs. And I also like the idea of being able to just sit there and brain dead farm out guys at Renfall. I feel like all of these different methods for farming the shards should be relatively viable. I would say probably the Syntax one should be the best, because in terms of like the time spent, because it takes the most amount of gear to do effectively to where it's better than the other methods. So if you have very good gear, you'd probably farm a Syntax, and if you don't, maybe collect some treasure chests or kill rares or something like that. So it adds a different level of breadth of content and different types of people, different strokes for different folks. Everybody gets to do something a little bit different, and they get to move to different things and maybe go back to different things if they want to. So I feel like the Nether Shards is a very good indication of Blizzard trying to control very, very tightly the way that players do things in the game. And I feel like them doing that and making so many changes is not only indicative of the fact that they did no testing on this in PTR, because you would have obviously seen that this would happen, right? Especially with the rare spawns at Renfall. It's just ridiculous. And on top of that, then completely changing the Syntax portals. And I can understand them wanting to make the lieutenants more valuable, but nerfing the portals so much and not really having the lieutenants really kind of make up for that, I feel like killed the type of gameplay that a lot of people, including myself, enjoyed. Being able to just sit there and farm out some mobs and just chill and do that for a couple of hours is cathartic and relaxing for a lot of people. And just because MMOs in 2017 lol doesn't necessarily mean that the idea of grinding things is completely bad, or grinding should be a four-letter word, because it's not. So I just feel like they should allow that to happen, and they should try to stop corralling people into certain directions, and especially whenever it's nerfing things like players' efficiency for being able to farm things. Now, on top of that, the Nether Shards right now can be very, very lucrative to farm, and especially they were before they nerfed the Syntax portals. I'm not sure how lucrative they are now. If you're using the Nether Shards to buy any sort of a specific slot of gear, like trinkets or whatever, you can get legendaries, you can get something, if you're a warrior, you can get Convergence of Fate, Draft of Souls, something else really, really awesome. And there's a number of things you can get out of this that are very, very rewarding. And I feel like maybe they could cap Nether Shards at like maybe 905 or 910, so they can't actually exceed Mythic Plus level gear. But, you know, since this is basically Legion Lotto, I don't really think that's going to happen. But I am kind of, I don't really know what the word for it is. I feel like, in general, the game that I grew up playing wouldn't have you be able to buy a magic item and then identify it for an item that's better than Naxxrama's 60 gear. And I like the progression of gear that's based on the difficulty of the content and the availability of the content. And I feel like just having all that random stuff isn't necessarily a good thing. And it is going to create a certain level of apathy once people get to a plateau of their gear, and they're not going to care anymore. Now, along with that, the Nether Shards, the challenge mode appearances. Now, there's a lot of people who are pissed off about this. I'm looking on the forums, I was reading them before this, and people were like, man, I can't finish my challenge appearance. I'm never going to put another Order Hall resource in the Mage Tower again. Fuck! And that's like, and it's got like fucking 500 thumbs up. What the fuck? What are you talking about? It's tuned for TOS gear, and I click on their armory and they're 871. Of course you can't do it. Of course. You've got to have better gear. And then it's like, people are saying, oh, this isn't a skill check, this is just a gear check. I'm going to tell you something right now. For one, it's hard to get the gear. Two, I can guarantee you half the people saying that, 99% of the people saying that probably, if they had the gear, they still wouldn't be able to do it. It's hard. It's a gear check and a skill check. I think it's awesome. I haven't done the prot one yet, the tanking one. It's really fucking hard, and I need to get better. That's it. I did the Fury one. I could probably do the Arms one if I put a lot of time into it. Having things that are very, very hard to do, that are gated not only by skill, but also by gear, primarily by gear, but also by skill, I think that's good for the game because it gives people who are motivated in that way. And you can see with how many people put resources into the Mage Tower that a lot of people are motivated. Even though they say it's for TOS, people still want to try. And that aspiration is, that's really cool to see so many people that want to be better than what they already are. And I've seen a lot of people telling me that, well, next time I'm going to come into this with better gear. So having contests, or sorry, not contests, but challenges like this that people can't initially do, but they're going to be able to do whenever they have better gear, incentivizes them and motivates them to get better gear. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people that I've heard of, that I've talked to, this has been a big motivator for them to get better gear so they could get this prestigious appearance. And I feel like, honestly, there needs to be more things like that. I feel like that was really what motivated a lot of people in the game, was to have what other people didn't, to achieve what other people couldn't, and to do what everybody else couldn't do. And also to be, recognized for that. That's why people would stand in Ironforge on the little bridge pillar thing on the way over to the auction house and back and forth. They'd stand on that little pillar there with their raid gear so everybody could see that. And people saw that and they aspired to that, and people also got a lot out of having that and being inspired too. Even if you think that's stupid, it doesn't really matter, because I believe that's human psychology. I've said this a number of times before, but nobody buys a Lamborghini to go 200 miles an hour. If you do that, you're going to go to jail. But they buy it to park it outside Taco Bell. Sorry, somebody sent me a message. They buy it to park it outside Taco Bell, and then see people taking pictures next to their car, come out, and then act like it's not a big deal because they've got a Lamborghini. I feel like that's really something that's basic human nature, and giving people a way to distinguish themselves and stand out is very, very important. And things like the Artifact Challenge really do play into that psyche element of human nature, and I think it's good. Now, a number of other things, little things that they added, PvP brawls are awesome. I was able to do the Winter Alterac. Why? I say every time. The Winter Arathi Basin, they call it Arathi Blizzard. It's real cute. I like it a lot. It's awesome. I think it's really, really fun. I feel like kind of the way that players phase in and out through the invisibility, because basically if people are too far away from you, you can't target them. They're invisible. I feel like that's kind of gamey, and I don't like that. But overall, I really do like the new, the Winter Arathi Basin. I love the new zone. I love the PvP brawls. I think they're great. I hope a lot of people feel like they're compelled to do them. Maybe they should make the reward for completing 3 of them per week or whatever. They should make it more compelling. On top of that, the Pet Battle Dungeon's cool. Okay. On top of that, the PvP gear. If you guys didn't know, you can use PvP gear, and you can melt down PvP gear in the Obliterum Forge, and after you get enough of it, you can buy a certain piece, right? And I think they need more stuff like this in the game, and this was a great change, and I need to kind of expand this ideology that they have with the melting things down and then building something else up, or being able to roll your dice again. They need to expand this ideology into more elements of the game through maybe item upgrades or Valor points or something like that, or just Obliterum using it to upgrade gear. Basically, if you obliterate enough gear, PvP gear, it gives you this certain currency, and you can use that currency to buy a specific item slot from a vendor, right? So you can buy a helmet, chest piece, shoulders, all the different slots. And so this not only gives players a way to complete their transmog sets, but it also, after they've done that, if they're pretty serious PvPers, it allows them to also be able to just re-roll for gear and have something else that they can be working towards simultaneously that is deterministic, which is what a lot of PvPers have been asking for. One thing, the last thing I really kind of want to talk about here is the AK levels, right? I think it's something, it's like June 20th or June 26th or something whenever you finally get AK 50. And I feel like it's just kind of, and a lot of things are like this in WoW right now, it's like World of Waiting. Like, you're just waiting. Like, I'm not turning in my emissary quest tonight because the AK is going to be tomorrow, and then I'm going to make, I'm going to get more AP from it. And everybody's always just waiting. People are waiting. And I feel like Blizzard should do something to where people don't feel like they're just controlled by that arbitrary, timer. and I don't really know what they can do. I feel like maybe being able to buy like an extra level of AK each week if you have like 10,000 order hall resources. I've said this before, I think that would be a great solution, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Oh, actually I do. It's not going to happen. But I'd like to see something like that happen regardless. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much how I feel about patch 7.2. I think it's getting a lot of unfair dislike to it, and I don't really know why. I feel like a lot of people are angry about the challenge appearances, which I think is completely like unfounded and ridiculous. I feel like people are mad about the nether shards, which is completely fair. And I also feel like some people are mad about flying, because some people already have flying. I don't have it yet. Because like in the first couple of days, nobody really thought to server hop to get different of the Legion Fall resources, and so people are calling it an exploit. It's not an exploit. It's been in the game for years. You'd think they'd change it if it was an exploit. So it's obviously not an exploit to use server hopping to get more resources. This has been happening for years now, but at the same time I can see how some people would be kind of frustrated with that, because now they have to download an add-on and do all of this extra work. And so I feel like the flying concerns that people have are going to be alleviated in maybe like 2 weeks or so, once everybody would have already gotten flying just through doing the world quests in the Broken Shore. But I feel like also the invasion should be better incentivized, primarily through reputation with the Legion Fall armies. But anyway, guys, that's how I feel. I think patch 7.2 is really good. I'm very concerned with how Tomb of Sargeras is going to potentially invalidate and outdate content like Emerald Nightmare and also Trial of Valor and Nighthold to a lesser degree, and I'm very concerned about that. But other than that, I feel like 7.2 was a good addition to the expansion. And I really hope that Blizzard can do more of those additions to the expansion rather than doing things that invalidate previous content. So that's pretty much how I feel. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to disagree. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to agree. But I'd like to hear why, and I'll be very curious and eagerly waiting to see what you guys have to say. But until next time, thanks a lot for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.